It is 8 March, Sunday. I'm Charlie Garrett, and this is the CG Prophecy Report. Ratatatatat in West Virginia. That and a lot of other things to go over on today's report. Okay, I got some news from Israel, but before I do this, I want to, because, this is kind of Israel involved. It's based on the Bible, and the Bible was originally from the Jewish people, the people of Israel, so this is a great place to do this. I'm not one to recommend books. If people want me to recommend books, it's not my kind of thing because I don't read books, and if I haven't read a book, then I'm not going to recommend it. And I've got a book over here that I've been reading for over a year, and it's only like 180 pages, and it's big words. I just don't get a lot of free time. I have one book that I read, one. But a friend of mine asked me to edit his book, and I don't want to edit any more books for anybody because it's very time consuming, but because he's a great guy and he had a wonderful idea, I said I would do it. And what it is it's something you would put like on your table, your grandchildren read it or something, friends come over, and it's really well done. I'm surprised. He got a hardback copy finally. And he actually has two. The first one is the volume of the book. It's called Christ Through Scripture. Okay. He takes pictures of Christ all the way through. It's got these great photos, and it's got just a short write-up, and it's very tactfully done about how Christ is found in the Old Testament. And then he did a second one called the volume of the book Christ in the New Testament. And he just takes stories and explains them in a way that people can grasp very, very easily. Okay, and I would recommend this for, especially if you have family members or something that need to know about Jesus, and especially younger people, because this is the kind of thing when I was young, I would read my grandmother. She had The Raven, Edgar Allan Poe. It was just like this. It was a book, and it was always sitting out, and I was so fascinated by the photos, and so I memorized the entire Raven. And I could probably quote it to you right now. I'm not going to because we'd be here until 12 o'clock tonight. It's a long poem. But anyway, I recommend these. It's something I don't like to do otherwise, but in this case, I do recommend these because I personally read every single word of it. So if that's something that interests you, there you go. And we'll get some news from Israel now. From Joe Hoft. I just picked a couple of articles. I'm not one to talk about things that are going on in the news. It's never my thing because everybody is talking about what's going on in the news. And they all have their own opinion about where the war is going and that kind of stuff. And we're so early. We've been a week, and we got people that are already saying that they've already got it all figured out. Well, we don't. So I picked a couple of articles about the war, but which are kind of behind the scenes, and I think they're really cool. From Joe Hoft. This one, I didn't find any other information to confirm it. So I want to let you know that right now, but he put it out. He's the brother of Jim Hoft, who does the Gateway Pundit. But if it is true, it's very interesting. Israel's spies had ingenious methods of tracking Iran's top leaders and generals. Israeli spies implemented an incredible process to know where Iran's Islamic terrorist regime's top leaders were at all times. Over the past few years, Mossad undercover agents infiltrated as doctors and dentists in Iran. The dentists gave priority to key military and elite Iranian personnel. While doing a routine dental checkup, they implanted tracking devices as fillings for cavities. On the other side, gastro doctors implanted several devices in their elite patients, so right in their stomachs. Mossad knew exactly where each one of them was, and Khamenei's wife and family members included, and sent missiles at them. Over 400 elite military and government personnel were eliminated in the first few moments. Also, what is being reported is that the individuals running the effort to catch Israeli spies in Iran were Israelis. Okay, so that's very interesting. And the one thing that makes this completely plausible, because like I say, I didn't see this anywhere else, but what makes it to me completely plausible is that people in Israel have come from all of the nations of the world, and they are fluent in those languages. The parents can tell you, well, if you want to go into Iran and do this, you want to live on this street, you want to hang out with these people, they are Israeli sympathizers, etc. They know. And so that makes it perfectly plausible, and so that's why I included that. From World Israel News, Mossad hacks popular Iranian prayer app, urges mass defection among soldiers, while no government officially claimed responsibility. Cybersecurity analysts quoted in multiple outlets, I saw this on several news services, so I can say that this one is valid, said the operation bore the hallmarks of Mossad and Israel's cyber warfare units. A major cyber operation attributed by experts to Israel targeted one of Iran's most widely used religious applications, sending defection appeals to millions of users across the country. As soon as they go to their prayer app, all of a sudden this comes up. The Bade Sabah calendar app, downloaded more than 5 million times, was infiltrated. The first push notification appeared at 9:52 a.m. local time, reading, "Help has arrived." Additional alerts urged Iranian military and security personnel to defect, lay down their weapons, or join liberation forces, with some messages promising amnesty for those who abandoned the regime. So here they are doing this right at the beginning of this conflict, which was very interesting. Mail Online. Mossad hacked every traffic camera in Tehran for years. How Israel and America sealed the fate of the Ayatollah. Israel gained access to almost all the city's cameras, which are used extensively by Iran to spy on regime opponents and its own population, and track the movements of key bodyguards. Images were said to be transmitted back to Tel Aviv and southern Israel, allowing Mossad to develop intimate knowledge on the guards' addresses, work schedules, and who they were assigned to protect. One camera angle proved especially helpful and allowed agents to track where bodyguards parked their personal cars when arriving at the Supreme Leader's compound on Pasteur Street in the heart of Tehran. They knew everything about what was going on, where the people were, so that when they went in, they were able to decimate the leadership in the first moments of the war. Unbelievable. From the Jerusalem Post. Parish kosher restaurant sprayed with acid for the third time, plates and cutlery rendered unusable. Okay, this is the kind of thing you can expect from the Islamic religion. Jews are there, they get established, they have their own thing, they make their own products, they, do their own meat slaughtering, everything. They're independent, they don't welch off the society. Muslims come in and they demand that you have halal Chick-fil-A's, and everything has to be catered to them. And then when they don't like the competition, like the Jewish people, they go in and they savage them. So this is the difference in ideology here. From the Times of Israel, Berlin saw a record 2,267 anti-Semitic crimes in 2025. Report shows the new figures in the city where the Holocaust was engineered are shameful, says Member of Parliament Sebastian Schlusberg. So there you go. This is just the kind of thing that's going on. They import these people, and the people just infect the society, and they bring down, and the thing is, this is going to be the same thing that happened during World War II. The Jews get persecuted. They start leaving Germany. They come to America and other friendly countries, and they get that vast wealth of knowledge that these Jewish people have, and they're able to develop nuclear weapons. They're able to, do all the things that they do in these other societies because Germany took the best of their people and they tried to kill all of them. Okay, well, that's happening again. These Jewish people in the society are productive, and they're going to be drummed out, and then they're going to have a whole society full of people that are non-productive and counterproductive. But this is what they want in these Western nations today. Got some news from Christianity here from CBS. Appeals court clears way for Louisiana law requiring public schools to display the Ten Commandments. It went to the appeals court. The appeals court says, of course, this is legal, which anybody in their right mind would know that it is legal. But, of course, people sue, and then it has to go through the process. They may sue again. They will lose, and it's probably not worth their time any longer, but it may happen. U.S. Appeals Court has cleared the way for Louisiana law requiring poster-sized displays of the Ten Commandments in public classrooms to take effect. The Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals voted 12-6 to lift a block that a lower court first placed on the law in 2024. In the opinion, the court said it was too early to make a judgment call on the constitutionality of the law. That's partly because it's not yet clear how prominently schools may display the religious text, if teachers will refer to the Ten Commandments during classes, or if other things like the Mayflower Compact or Declaration of Independence will also be displayed, the majority opinion said. Without those sorts of details, the panel decided it didn't have enough information to weigh any First Amendment issues that might arise from the law. In other words, there just aren't enough facts available to permit judicial judgment rather than speculation, the majority wrote in their opinion. Well, there are facts because other states have been doing this for years, and it's not a problem. And if that's the case, precedent has been set, and we don't need to go through this, but we're going to go through it every time somebody wants to do something like this. LifeSite. Pete Hegseth delivers powerful, pro-life, anti-woke, Christ is King speech. Wow, this is great. You know, we got people in the administration that will actually speak about Jesus now. Secretary of War Hegseth delivered a powerful pro-Christian, pro-life, anti-woke message that was frequently punctuated by extended thunderous applause and cheers in Nashville. Hegseth offered his remarks at the National Religious Broadcasters International Christian Media Convention. Under the leadership of President Trump, the military once again supports and trains our troops and tends to their spiritual health, explained Hegseth. We train our troops. We no longer trans our troops. Gone is godless and divisive DEI, said Hegseth. Gone is gender bending, equity, and quotas. Gone is climate change, worship to a false god. We are one military, one fighting force, one nation under God. We are not in woke, we trust. We are in God, we trust. Protecting the God-given life of an unborn baby is not political. It is biblical. Protecting our borders from criminals who steal from us, assault our loved ones, and poison our citizens is not political. It's biblical. Protecting women and children from being trafficked for sexual slavery is not political. It is biblical. Standing guard over our children rather than letting them be taught perverse sexual practices or sharing a locker room with men pretending to be women is not political. It's biblical. Protecting our culture under our religion from godless ideologies and pagan religions is not political. It's biblical. Protecting our borders from criminals who steal from us, assault our loved ones, and poison our citizens is not political. It is, in big letters, biblical. As long as I have breath, I commit to you that I and we should never allow any group, no matter how large or small, to silence us from speaking the capital T, truth. Christ is King. He died for our sins. We are forgiven. He declared as the crowd erupted in applause. He will come again in glory. Amen. Irish Star. Pope Leo demands priests stop using AI to write sermons over TikTok panic. You know, if that's the least of their worries, or if that's the greatest of their worries, I got to tell you what, they've got a lot more trouble than that in the Catholic Church. But there you go. Okay, we got some news from the Mideast and Africa today. From the Gateway Pundit. Iranian journalist and activist Masih Ali-Nejad unloads on UN for giving Iran advisory role on Human Rights Council. This is a Persian that is not in Persia, and she's upset about this, as she should be. And they had taken Iran, as they do every couple of years, and they shoved them on the Human Rights Council when they just got done slaughtering 30,000 of their own citizens. Now, imagine this while I'm reading this article. Imagine a lady with the most bizarre head of hair you've ever seen. Every picture, it's different, and she does the most... Here she is sitting in the UN with hair all over the place. I mean, it is cool. Anyway, Alinejad shared, thank you so much, everyone. I am supposed to talk only in 3 minutes, but in my country, in 24 hours, they killed 40,000 people in Iran. And I am here at the UN while the killers are walking here. I saw them with expensive Gucci bags. She's pointing at these Persian UN people, the Iranians in the UN. I saw them with expensive brands walking here at the UN, and this is the right time. UN Watch invited me. I'm very thankful, but I'm going to talk the truth. United Nations is a sad joke. Ironically, I was invited by the U.S. government recently to testify at the Security Council at the UN, and I said that the Secretary General of the UN stands with dictators. Here, I'm going to ask you 3 steps that they took, and I will ask you whether they stand with dictators or with the victims. As Hilal mentioned, they're quoting her, and her English is not great, so I'm not doing this, she is. Okay, as Hilal mentioned, should be the UN stand with the victims. 3 steps. First, the Secretary General of the UN sent a congratulations letter to the Islamic Republic for the anniversary of this murderous regime. You tell me, do they stand with dictators or the victims? The victims are here. These two women. One of them lost her eye because the Revolutionary Guard shot her in the eye. One of them carried a bullet on her arm. Seema, do they stand with them? No, we have only 3 minutes. But the killers have everything here. Second step, Asane Nipadpur. I can't pronounce her name anyway. How ironic. Now she's in charge. The woman who was in charge to oppress women in my country is now in charge to monitor women's rights globally. This is not an insult to an Iranian. This is an insult to all of you living in democratic countries. This is a slap on your face because they are being now in charge to make sure that your human rights, your basic rights, is being respected by your government. A representative from a murderous regime is in charge to take care of all you in Europe. And third, they invited Arafat. Thanks to the UN, thanks to can I show the signature? Thanks to 300,000 signature. Ordinary people, they canceled Arafat. But instead they invite this person, who actually in the negotiation table with the US in the West stole the pen. This is the character, low-class killers. And now 7 days. In 7 days, he is going to give a talk at the UN. I want Geneva to hear the voice of Iranians. Right now, after killing 40,000 people, they are storming to the hospitals. They're finishing off the injured ones. They're arresting doctors and nurses. They put political prisoners on the death row. They're executing them. I want to ask Geneva to host a peace conference, invite the opposition from Iran, invite the leaders of Europe, invite the leaders from the European country and free world here to talk about an Iran without Islamic Republic. I know my time is over. 3 minutes, but I'm going to show you something. The West waited too long. That doesn't call you Islamophobic if you treat ISIS the way that they deserve to be. And then they cut her off. But she had 3 minutes to say her mind, and she said it with a lot of hair. Anyway, from the Post-Millennial, Cincinnati pro soccer game pauses. This is Cincinnati. Pro soccer game pauses at sundown to accommodate Muslim players during Ramadan. Yes, Cincinnati paused play in the middle of its match against Atlanta United so players observing Ramadan could break their fast at sundown. The game is being paused now that it is sundown for players observing Ramadan. I would have walked off the field. I'd never go back.
That's right.
Gateway pundit, Somali activists who can barely speak English demand reparations over trauma from ICE raids in Minnesota. I got a suggestion. How about repatriations?
Yeah.
Send them all back.
Yeah.
Mail online. Iranians flood social media with videos of them doing the Trump dance. Thanks to President for eliminating Khomeini. You would not believe the dances all over the world. They're doing the Trump dance. All these Iranians.
Yes.
Great stuff.
Demonstrate
Great.
for us.
I'm not demonstrating. I'm sorry. You'll have to go find the link and watch the video. I am not doing that. From Mongolia, from Earth.com. This is very important. You all need to read this article. I just took a snippet to get you interested. DNA from Mongol elites narrows debate over Genghis Khan's lineage. Ancient DNA taken from 4 high-status graves tied to medieval Mongol ruling families shows that the people buried there trace their ancestry to Mongolia. That discovery helps clarify where this powerful dynasty came from and reveals that its leaders also had children with local steppe communities, the vast grassland regions that stretch across Central Asia as their empire expanded. I know you want to know more. Go read the article. Daniel 12 Technology today from the Washington Times. Trading blood for steel? Army's new combat philosophy puts autonomous robots on the front lines. The service is searching for ways to fundamentally change how soldiers fight and win future wars. At the heart of that is a push for replaceable smart technology such as autonomous robots to move ahead of human soldiers in the most dangerous situations. Army CTO Miller said the Army's top priorities include developing drone technology for overcoming battlefield obstacles, resupplying troops under attack, and evacuating wounded soldiers from the front lines. The Army is completely changing the way it approaches those missions. The objective, he said, is to make the Army as a whole faster and more effective rather than just giving soldiers more tools. The shift to autonomous systems represents a major cultural change for the Army. New technologies from communications equipment to classified intel tools are now required to integrate AI and software into the designs of systems and tools the services rely on. Miller pointed to breaching, the complex and dangerous task of pushing through mines, razor wire, and sometimes large earthen beams built up as an obstacle to slow down troops, as an example. The Army's approach to breaching hasn't changed in a meaningful way since the late 1980s, with the introduction of the mine-clearing line charge, which is essentially a metal cable with explosive charges meant to detonate a clear path for soldiers, or breaching the obstacle in military parlance. A recent demonstration with the Army tested this exact process, augmented with an autonomous ground vehicle made by Overland AI. During the demonstration, a version of the company's uncrewed Ripsaw M5 vehicle towed a trailer with the mine-clearing charge up to an obstacle. As a quadcopter drone overhead spread smoke to obscure an earthen berm with concrete barriers in front of it, the trailer angled up and fired the cable charge to blast a path. All of that happened without a soldier in the vehicle to experience the dangerous shockwave of the explosives or be exposed to a hypothetical enemy threat. It's an example of what Overland AI called a human-machine integration formation. We are training warfighters directly and incorporating continuous feedback to ensure our systems perform in real-world conditions while building the trust required for operational use. So very good. They're trying to save lives before even getting into the battle. Now, just so you know, the type of thing that they were talking about, you may not be able to understand it, but they've got people in, we'll say looks like a tank. They pull up to an area that they know they have a minefield. Then they have this thing that is on a coil and it slings it out. Like, just think of taking a rope and slinging it out across the church here. And that is explosive. And when it lands, it explodes and clears everything there. But it's dangerous for the people in that because it may blow back on them. They may ruin their ears. You never know. And so by having that done autonomously, you have no people involved, and it just makes it much, much safer for the people later to go in and, get active. So there you go. It's a dangerous world, including the inevitable plagues noted in the book of Revelation. From Zero Hedge, another article that was very long, had all the information you'll ever want to know about these. I just gave a little snippet to get you interested. These are the world's 10 deadliest viruses. Anybody know what tops the list of the most deadly viruses? I never would have gotten this. Rabies. Rabies tops the list with a fatality rate approaching 100% once symptoms appear. The virus kills an estimated 59,000 people per year, primarily in Africa and Southeast Asia. The virus spreads primarily through the saliva of infected animals, especially dogs. Several of the viruses on the list cause viral hemorrhagic fevers, including Ebola, Marburg, and Crimean Congo hemorrhagic fever. These diseases often lead to severe internal bleeding and organ failure. Ebola and Marburg have fatality rates around 50%, with outbreaks concentrated in Central and Sub-Saharan Africa. The 2014-2016 West Africa Ebola outbreak alone killed over 11,000 people and brought global attention to epidemic preparedness. Most of the viruses ranked here originate in animals. Fruit bats are linked to the Nipah and Marburg viruses, while rodents are associated with Lujo virus. Camels are the primary reservoir for, remember this one, MERS-CoV? Remember that was out big a couple of years ago, maybe 10 years ago. And you get it from, does anybody remember how you get that? Camels give it to you. How do you get it? Nobody remembers this? This is like, you have to drink their pee-pee. Yes. It's a delicacy over there, drinking camel pee. So if you just stop doing that, then you're not going to get that disease, right? First identified in Saudi Arabia in 2012. We got one person that remembers that. I don't know what that says about you and me, but anyway. Avian influenza, H5N1, spreads from infected birds and has roughly 50% fatality rate among confirmed human cases, far higher than seasonal flu. Although human infections remain relatively rare, the high case fatality rate has kept global health authorities on alert. So there you go. Rabies. I mean, we had that in Florida when I was a kid, and we just thought that was normal. You get bit by something, immediately you have to cut off the animal's head, send it to Tallahassee. They would test, does this have rabies? And then they'd start giving you, I think, shots right in your heart. Is that right? If you don't do that, stomach. But if you don't do that and you start showing symptoms, you're gone. You have to do that immediately. They have to find that animal. They have to test it. If it is infected, they would immediately start the treatments. Otherwise, you're a goner. So there you go. Morality. Gateway Pundit. Colorado Democrats introduced bill to fully decriminalize prostitution. It could make state the first in the nation to legalize sex work. Yeah, here we go. Gateway. They do have areas in California where this has happened. Not the whole state, but they do. And it has been a disaster for young women. Shocking. Disaster. Shocking. But it'll work. They'll have it all figured out in Colorado. No problem. Gateway Pundit. Pentagon fires sicko male transgender wolf kindergarten teacher at Fort Bragg after parent complaints. How did he ever get in there in the first place? The Post-Millennial. Washington State spent millions on sex change surgeries for convicted criminals. Breitbart. Vermont. Foster care license restored to couple opposed to transgender treatments on children. Finally, some sense. The Post-Millennial. Upstate New York teacher removed after she helped students start a TPUSA club at school. Can't have that. Can't have that. Out she goes. Gateway Pundit. Tennessee House passes bill protecting right to decline recognition of same-sex marriage. If you don't want to recognize it, nobody can say anything. The Post-Millennial. BC Human Rights Tribunal orders ex-school trustee to pay $750,000 over hate speech for saying there are two genders. Just say it, and that's hate speech. $750,000. Gateway Pundit. Professor gets rid of finals, assigns editing of LGBTQ plus Wikipedia pages instead. Wow. Yep. The Post-Millennial. Washington girl attacked in middle school locker room by other students for allegedly supporting Donald Trump and ICE. They beat her to within an inch of her life. You can go watch it on how badly they beat her for just supporting the president. Breitbart. And she'll be the one that gets arrested. When she's all better, they'll put her in jail for some reason. Breitbart. Study. Trans shooters. That can't be. No way. Trans shooters commit disproportionate shares of mass public and active shooting attacks? Yeah, well, that's what they say. LifeSite. Canada is killing people in assisted suicide the same day they request it. KCTV. New Kansas law voids gender marker changes on state IDs and birth certificates. No more. We're not taking this in Kansas. That governor wanted it, and they have overridden her on several things because she's a Democrat, which means she's... Okay, got some other news. Zero Hedge. Out of Africa, Beijing slashes investment up to 85%. So this tells you that things aren't going well in China despite all of the... Okay, for more than a decade, China's footprint across Africa has expanded at a phenomenal pace. Railways in Kenya, ports in Tanzania, energy products across sub-Saharan Africa, and militarized infrastructure in various places have meant billions in state-backed loans. For decades, Beijing has positioned itself as Africa's largest trading partner and its most aggressive infrastructure financier. But something has changed in some sectors, such as energy lending by Chinese development finance institutions. Investment levels have fallen by as much as 85% from their peak years. That's not a rounding error. That's a strategic retreat. What's really going on? Is China walking away from Africa, or is Africa revealing something deeper about China's own economic stress? It's all of the above and more. Chinese development finance for African energy products has declined roughly 85% since 2015. That's a dramatic contraction in capital deployment. Separate reporting based on data from Boston University's Global Development Policy Center shows that Chinese lending to Africa has fallen sharply in recent years. In some reports, Chinese investment fell nearly 46% year over year in 2024. This isn't just a pause, it is a reset. For years, Beijing fueled infrastructure growth across the continent through state-backed loans tied to its Belt and Road Initiative expansion. Now, the tap isn't fully off, but it's not flowing as freely as it used to. It's important to note a few critical facts. For one, China remains Africa's largest trading partner. Trade volumes remain substantial and have even grown in recent years. But lending and investment are different from trade. Instead of large sovereign infrastructure loans, Beijing appears to be shifting toward more commercially viable projects and private sector-led foreign direct investment. Beijing is also favoring trade expansion over debt expansion. That's a broad policy shift. An analysis of broader outbound Chinese investment patterns in 2025 shows a more cautious and selective capital strategy globally, not just in Africa. In other words, China isn't abandoning Africa, Beijing is abandoning risk. But the context may be less about Africa and more about China. It's no state secret that China's economy is under real pressure, including a prolonged property sector downturn, persistent and high local government debt, slowing GDP growth, and weak domestic consumption. Those challenges have led Beijing to ramp up capital controls and financial risk management, both of which are indicators of a markedly different economy than the one for which China became world-renowned. In short, China's days of double-digit expansion are long gone. A new malaise has set in that isn't easily overcome. Chinese authorities are increasingly focused on stabilizing employment, preventing financial contagion, and managing demographic decline. When capital gets tight at home, overseas mega projects become harder to justify, especially in politically complex or financially risky environments. Thus, Africa isn't being punished, it's being reprioritized. Even some critics of the debt trap diplomacy narrative note that China has become far more cautious as a creditor in recent years. China's Africa policy framework still operates through the Forum on China-Africa cooperation, which continues to promote trade, tariff elimination for least developed African countries, and development cooperation. Trade between China and Africa reached nearly $300 billion in recent reporting, underscoring that economic ties remain strong, but there's a difference between facilitating trade and underwriting sovereign debt. China's earlier model, which provided large state-backed loans for infrastructure, carried political and financial risks. Some projects underperformed and other countries struggled with repayment, becoming vassals of Beijing amid intensifying global scrutiny. Beijing appears to have decided to scale back exposure to such risks, tightening standards and investing where returns are clearer. That's not ideological behavior, but balance sheet management. An 85% reduction in certain categories of overseas investment doesn't just reflect changing foreign policy, it signals that large-scale overseas lending no longer aligns with domestic priorities. And that conserving capital is a necessity, as liquidity and risk appetite have tightened. Beijing recognizes that as economic conditions decline, domestic stability declines as well. Therefore, the CCP is prioritizing internal stability by managing debt, stabilizing property markets, and preserving employment. At this point, it's clear that these rising domestic problems matter more to the CCP than expanding geopolitical infrastructure influence. It's not necessarily that the era of unlimited Belt and Road expansion is over, but China is entering a phase of selective return-driven engagement over broad strategic underwriting. This is what economic maturation or economic strain looks like. The CCP's global ambitions are now bound by domestic economic reality. Overextension abroad while managing economic fragility at home is a dangerous combination. Pulling back could signal discipline, economic stress, or both. Economic stress demands financial discipline, and when the world's second largest economy tightens its checkbook by 85% in key sectors, the story isn't just about Africa's financial future. It is about China's. And I'm going to tell you right now that Trump knows this, and I've said this since the moment he got back into office. His main goal has been China. And that includes attacking Iran, by the way. Attacking Iran is severely limiting China. He's not a dummy. He knows exactly what he's doing. Zero hedge. Remember our title today? Ratatatatat in West Virginia. West Virginia introduces bill to sell machine guns to American citizens. Did you know that machine guns cannot be sold legally to citizens? Did you know that? Guess what? Currently, newly manufactured machine guns are banned for civilian ownership thanks to an amendment slipped into the 1986 Firearm Owners Protection Act. Interestingly, though, the language of the Hughes Amendment specifies that machine gun ban doesn't apply to the government, which includes state and local governments. Well, we at Gun Owners of America had a thought. What if the states wanted to sell machine guns to their citizens? That is, what if they were to engage in a transfer by a state? Because it's legal for the state to have these machine guns and do whatever they want with them. According to 9220, a state government may lawfully transfer, that is, sell, give, loan, etc., machine guns to ordinary citizens. And after the transfer is complete, those citizens may lawfully possess them, so long as the transfer was made by the state government. DOJ has already made the legal argument to support the West Virginia bill that had been introduced. DOJ already admitted that the transfer of a machine gun by the government does not offend federal law. And as DOJ's filing clearly acknowledges, once that transfer from the government has occurred, the gun owner's subsequent possession of the machine gun would also be lawful under Section 9220. Now, if they do this, I will drive to West Virginia and I will buy one just to bring in here and show you my machine gun, okay? Summed up, the exemption from the ban on machine guns follows the firearm, not who possesses it. This is why our legislation, now officially introduced by our allies in West Virginia, would create state-operated machine gun stores. This state-run entity would be tasked with purchasing machine guns and conducting transfers to qualified members of the public, much like how many states open and operate liquor stores. So right out of the West Virginia Capitol, which I preached at one time, just walk in, they got a little store there, buy your machine gun, go on out, and rat-a-tat-a-tat-a-tat. Okay, from the Japan Times. Number of births in Japan falls to record low for the 10th straight year. Preliminary data from the ministry shows that 705,809 babies were born in 2025, including those born in Japan, to foreign nationals, down 15,179, or 2.1% from a year earlier. The figure marks the 10th consecutive annual decline and the lowest level since comparable records began in 1899. This is happening all over the world. People are more interested in social media than having a family. From the Post-Millennial, Chuck Schumer calls for mass amnesty for 11 million illegal immigrants. Now listen to this. Listen to what a corrupt person this is. Schumer said that he would back a bill that toughens up the border while also providing a path to citizenship for 11 million people who are here. Okay, so he's not willing to toughen up the border all by itself. He has to have his part of the pie in order for that to happen. I would tell him, you can get out of Washington. I tell him a little differently, but I can't say it here. Okay? He is a corrupt person.
It's shocking.
Who said it? Education isn't everything. For a start, it isn't an elephant. What?
What was that again?
Spike Milligan. Yeah, okay, go look him up. I had to look him up because I didn't know him either. All right. But somebody will. And they say, oh, I know that guy. Okay, I got a Catholic here for you today. If you think you might need a machine gun to the state of West Virginia, you can run. Perhaps there's a need if from zombies or Creed. Once again, the gun rights folks have won. And she says, I think I'll just stay in Indiana. Okay, a couple ironies and we're done here. AP. This is ironic, and it's kind of like the Trump admin. The U.S. deported a gay asylum seeker to a third country where homosexuality is illegal. They sent her to Morocco.
There we go.
Okay, and then Zero Hedge. Syria asked Germany, think of this. Syria asked Germany not to deport its citizens back home, fearing it would make the country unsafe. Such is the world in which we live. So from Sarasota, Florida to Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia, I'm Charlie Garrett, and that is your CG Prophecy Report for the week.